All right, it is Thursday morning, and as always, looking forward to connecting and sharing with you some interesting headlines. There's lots of things unfolding, and I want to dive through and give you a little bit of a daily dose of what I think are some very interesting subjects worth touching on. And a lot of everything has to do today with the future forecasts that were quite predictable due to the Federal Reserve not being able to contain inflation, and so now there looks like it's like a deja vu situation appearing again, where I guess Trump will be utilized as a great cover up for that second wave that is inevitable. But we're going to dive in that as well as a couple of charts. So, as always, I appreciate you guys for blessing me with your presence wherever you're watching from. Feel free to leave a comment and definitely hit that thumbs up, the bell, the check mark, or whatever it is, so that you'll be notified when I put out videos. And definitely curious to get your thoughts. Of course, we have lots of tragedies in the world. As I've mentioned before, if you've been around the community, the enemy loves to use debt, death, and distractions to create a lot of noise for us to focus on. And unfortunately, the noise happen to be real world occurrences of events that are tragedies. And I'm referring to what's happening in California. But then again, California is no different than what happened in Hawaii, as well as in Chile, as well as all the other countries that we may have not heard of, because those climate events seem to just be in very strategic locations where there appear to be plans for building back better in the future. So once again, I put some stuff in Telegram to highlight more of that. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but everything is intentional. Nothing is accidental. Keep it at that. So for those who might be new, definitely want to encourage you to consider joining the Telegram as well as all the other socials. And so information is in the description, because I put stuff out there throughout the day, so you always stay up to speed on a variety of subject matters. So definitely feel free to do that, and you'll always be plugged in real time. So I want to just be short and concise, give you some news. And the news I'm referring to happens to be the good news. And then we'll get into a lot of the noise, which are just natural occurrences that must take place to get us where we got to go. And so bear with me. I'm going to do the best I can to deliver it in a timely manner, just so I can improve and deliver quality to you guys. So we're going to get right into the good news. Then we'll get into some resources. Then we'll get into the daily dose. So let's jump into it. All right, here's on the screen right here. Let me get myself in the screen. So as you can see here, today is the 9th, and it is entitled "To Be a Friend of the King." So these excerpts come from my daily devotionals, where when I'm deep diving into the word, I come up with stuff that I want to share. So I put it in a format where it's shareable. Here you have these little quick takes here. So let me enlarge my screen so I can see what I see, and I'll read it off to you. And as always, the goal is just to charge your spirit man up, to get you fired up, to hopefully lead you to taking some type of action, whether it be sharing your faith, whether it be doing a good act of service for your fellow man. There's a variety of ways that we can bear fruit on behalf of the Lord. So it says here, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend. John 15:13 said, did you know that the King of Kings invites you to be his friend? It says friendship with Jesus isn't just casual, it's covenantal. Covenantal. You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? In the ancient world, a king's friends were those who had direct access to him. They didn't just receive orders, they understood his heart. Jesus demonstrated the ultimate act of friendship by laying down his life for us. This was an ultimate. This was a fulfillment of what the prophet said about God's love for his people, a love so deep that he would give everything to reconcile us to himself. But there's a response required: obedience to his commands. In verse 14, Jesus says, you are my friends if you do what I command you. To be his friend is to align with his will, to walk in his ways, and to participate in the advancement of his government, aka the kingdom. Friendship with the king is the highest honor, but it's also a call to action. Lay down your pride, your fears, and your doubts, and take up the privilege of being a trusted confidant of the king who laid down his life for you. Call to action today. Choose to deepen your friendship with Yeshua by walking in obedience and love. The king is calling. Will you answer? All right. That is the good news for this morning. And let me just maneuver some things around on my end here. and then we're going to get into it and go from there. So as always, man, feel free to leave some thoughts, ideas, suggestions. The goal is to leave you edified, leave you more charged up spiritually than you came in. And so that's what I hope that did. So what we're going to do is just go through a quick glance of some news, share my 2 cents on it. That's why I want you to drop some comments and thoughts in the chat. Let me know in the comment section. Let me know what you guys are keeping your eyes on. We go from there. But before I move forward, got to do a little reminder for people. For those who might be new, this is the morning check-in. So make sure you subscribe so you'll never miss out when something is put out there, whether on Rumble or YouTube or wherever you're watching this from. I've tried to put this up everywhere so people from a variety of walks and formats will be able to connect. And also, if you guys want to support the channel, any monetary contributions would definitely help. You can scroll down to the bottom of this video here. There's some information there. And as you can see here, there's a variety of ways, Cash App, PayPal, crypto, you name it. Any monetary medium will be utilized to help put on this production here. So feel free to do that. And then also, for those who might be new and not familiar with Rethinking a Dollar, I've put together a variety of tools for people to use as a starting point. So here you have the Dollar IQ. If you go to rethinkingthedollar.com, scroll down to the bottom of the website, you'll be able to take this 10-question quiz. Right now, the average is below 60%. So people still need some help, and that's why I'm logging in. And then also another resource, the Dollarcation chart, which I call this a monetary cheat sheet. It is a way of uncovering all of the history surrounding the dollar and its many forms, because not all dollars are created equal. And so here is an entire chart of our nation's history dealing with money available for you to download at rethinkingthedollar.com. So check it out. Definitely will be a blessing to you. Okay. With that out the way now, I want to get into some other things as well. Let's jump into it, man. So got to big up my partners, man. Got to big up my partners over at colonialsmetalsgroup.com. So for those who might be new, you never know, but this is an opportunity for those that are solely dependent upon that 60-40 split, which is the conventional way that we have been told to invest for our retirements. There's alternatives out there, and it's something for you to consider, because no one's going to come knock on your door trying to give you some alternatives. And so that's my job. So once again, colonialsmetalsgroup.com/RTD. They are partnering with me to help get this information out there so people can understand that there's more than one way to invest for your retirement. And so you can do it through a self-directed IRA. And so here's the information on the screen here, as well as beneath the video. Fill out this form here. You'll download this PDF, which gives you information that answers a lot of questions about this type of service here. And if you're interested, check them out. Let them know Mike sent you, and you'll be blessed by doing such. All right, next thing here, sweet and simple. I want to continue to remind people to get their weight up in a variety of formats. And one, as you can see here, are the gold backs. And so the gold backs are 24 karat gold notes that are available. And in my opinion, they are the cheapest way to get exposure to gold. They are not the beginning and the end of your financial strategy. It's just one way that I believe is a feasible way and affordable way, because as you can see over there, $2.65 for a small note and $50 for this here note here, and then there's bigger notes. So if you're interested, the biggest note here is a 100 unit note, which is a $500 or so, and that's about 1/10 of a gram of gold. And so once again, they come with a premium because this is a unique service. So definitely check it out if you guys are interested. And then last, I want to make sure I invite everybody to join the silver team. So once I get that on the screen here, you'll understand what I'm saying. So the silver team is simply, it's a silver network where individuals who are passionate about silver, want to make it a hobby or a business. You can join by, let me get this on the screen here. You can join us by basically setting up an automated way to accumulate silver. Comes monthly in the mail. You don't have to worry about nothing. It just comes, and you stack weight that way on top of any other method you use. Let me get this out of the way here. And then also what you can do with this is help other people by setting up your own bullion store. And it starts off with just downloading or basically getting this free gram of silver here. It's absolutely free. All you have to do is just fill out the information, pay for shipping and handling, and it'll come into the mail. And it'll come to the mail for you. And then you can have access to this. And also, this is just a great way in 2025 to get involved in the silver space. You can have this store as well and share the link with your family and friends and people that purchase from you. You're rewarded for your efforts, and therefore you have your own silver business. So mysilverteam.com, links in the description. Check it out if you guys are interested. Okay, so with that stuff there, let's get into some of the nitty gritty, man. Now, so as I mentioned, we're going to have that second wave. That second wave is coming, and it's disguised as a or the Federal Reserve is positioning this as if it's Donald Trump's fault because of the tariffs. Like they had everything under control, but then again, it's these threat of tariffs that will put more pressure on the economy, therefore leading to higher inflation. Not a coincidental at all. So let's get into some daily news. Then we'll get into some market activity and things like that. Lots of things worth touching on. So let me bring this on the screen here, and then we can get it going, man. Definitely looking forward to sharing as much information as I can. So as always, for those who are interested in getting a hold of this, there's more articles on here than I will be able to cover. That's why I put it on here daily. So just go to rtd.news, type rtd.news in your web browser. It'll take you to this page here, and you get everything I put up here. And I just highlighted some things that I wanted to talk about. So I'll get into that. But I'll thumb through some headlines that I might be able to cover. But the very first one I will touch on, Fed officials are worried about the inflation impacts from Trump's policies, the minutes show. So this came out from their December minutes last year when they expressed concerns that all this tariff talk is going to make it hard for them to fight inflation when they were already losing the battle. Inflation wave, this chart here is about to just blow your mind. UK pound is plunging. The British pound is going through whatever. So my man Mario over there, I'm sure he's doing a good job covering it. We got TikTok's fate. We got Trump creates his NFT project on the Bitcoin network. Big Trump is getting that crypto bread. We got Trump's 100 executive orders. U.S. consumer borrowing drops on credit card balances. Bond yields rising. So I got articles on here for days. Stuff to keep you entertained. Mexican president responds to Trump's Gulf of America proposal. So it's never ending, man. It's a lot of juicy stuff on here. So check it out if you want. But I'm going to just stick to the things that I want to touch on in this short time we have together. And it starts with inflation. So let's jump into this one. So click on here. This is what's going on, man. We're going to thumb through this real quick. I'll share my 2 cents on it. And more importantly, I'm curious to get your thoughts. So feel free to have that in the comment section. All right, so let me get myself together here. I want to try to get through this as quick as I can to lay down the nuts and bolts, because ultimately all this does to me is only fuels my interest and my initial thesis on the fact that all Federal Reserve notes will be your greatest liability. There's no way of maneuvering this instrument back into existence to where the world wants them in abundance, and we will be able to rely upon these things. So the British pound, I'm going to show you some stuff about the British pound. That is a great example as to why fiats are failing, and even silver is not moving the way that you anticipated, but it has done its job of being a anchor of stability. I'm going to show you that in a minute. Okay, so let me get into this. Man, let me get into this real quick. Okay. The meeting summary featured at least 4 mentions about the effect changes in immigration and trade policy that could have on the U.S. economy. Okay. So what are they talking about? It says here, let me zoom in. It says Federal Reserve has at their December meeting expressed concern about inflation. Oh, I hate when that happens. Man, come on, now get yourself together, baby. All right. Hopefully it doesn't do it again, but I'm afraid. See, once again, like this is just the glitches within the system that I have nothing to do. Okay, but I'll read through it and hopefully I won't highlight it. But even though I like to highlight it, but anyway, we'll make the best of it. Okay. Just for time's sake, I gotta be efficient with this. Okay, so just read along with me if you like. I'll just read it to you. But it says here, Federal Reserve officials said on media, whatever, Donald Trump's policies could. So here we have the Federal Reserve, the Board of Governors, all 12 of them sitting in the office behind closed doors, planning out our monetary future. Those are the true monetary terrorists that has enslaved humanity, because their decisions impact our financial futures, and it always have. And I've been meaning to do a video about that, but I'll get to it eventually. But here is the scapegoat. This is the scapegoat that the Federal Reserve been looking for. This is what they need to cover up the idea that they were already losing inflation, because they can't win a monetary phenomenon that's, success in the grander scheme of things is the accomplishment of destroying and capturing the monetary structure the way they have, because everything hinges on the Federal Reserve note, which is a clear distinction from the dollar. If you want to look at it from a historical standpoint, that graph that I put together, I mentioned earlier, does a good job of doing that, to where it makes it clear that the Federal Reserve note was something created in 1913 and has become the primary unit that we use in this and its digital representation. But we used to have 7 different types of dollars in circulation. Now we're down to just 3. Federal Reserve note, the digital representations on your screen, and the coinage. Those three are what we have. We used to have seven up to about 60, 70 years ago. Anyway, but the scapegoat is Donald Trump. So let's see how they're gonna use this. It says indicating that they would be moving more slowly, on interest rate cuts because of the uncertainty minutes released on Wednesday. So let's back up. They've already cut significantly in the last 6 months or so, at a time where inflation, according to their measurements or their way of categorizing and their data situation, is already flawed and skewed to fit their purposes anyway. But we've seen over the last several months CPI figures ticking back up incrementally in different sectors, different parts. And so once again, that has shown us that there has been no containing. It's more so just a covering up of it already. And so now, because they know that in 2025, regardless of whatever Trump would have done or plans to do, we were going back up anyway. What better way to cover their own backs by saying that it's the tariff narrative that could be the impact? So we now have to consider slowing down our rate cuts. They were going to slow anyway, just because we know that CPI figures are trending back upwards. So they can't continue to cut willingly when things are trending back up. That defeats the whole purpose of them fighting inflation. But Trump is the cover-up. It says, without calling out Trump by name, the meeting summary featured at least 4 mentions about the effect of change in the immigration, whatever. It says Trump November election victory. He has signaled plans for the aggressive punitive tariffs on China, Mexico, Canada, as well as other nations. In addition, he intends to pursue more deregulation and mass deportation. However, the extent of what Trump's actions will be, and specifically how they will how they will be directed, creates a band of ambiguity about what is ahead. So the FOMC is concerned that all this talk is going to make it very difficult for them to do their regular operations. So slowing down rate cuts, whatever. Whenever that next event comes, they're going to slash rates so deep, so far, because they don't really care about inflation. Inflation is not something that they even care about or can control, because it's a monetary phenomenon based upon the expansion of currency. Okay, so using Trump as an scapegoat, it doesn't stop there, because here is what they're not saying or not willing to say. And so here, as you can see, deja vu, inflation waves. This is what they are behind the curve of, like they always have been. So this is a very interesting chart that I grabbed off of the internet that came out today. Basically just using previous events in history to predict future outcomes based upon what already occurred, which is what we are expecting to come. And it all has to do with the fact that the Federal Reserve, when they're in their concept of them, to them this is a game, but they look at it as a favorable outcome for themselves when they say things like, we have it contained and we are in a great position. And whenever Jerome Powell comes out and say things that just moves the market in a favorable way, that's their way of that Fed speak, which makes it seem as if they're really in control of things, when we all know that the open market, the private sector and the real world ultimately determines who buys interest rates, who buys bonds, and who doesn't buy bonds, and things of that nature. So, but here's a thing from George. Don't know the guy, but just this chart says a lot. He says, I lived through the first cycle, which is the 70s, early 70s. He said, what you're seeing is the latest cycle is, again, the Fed moving late and misdiagnosing a victory instead of a monetary pause in long-term inflation coming in waves. And then he says, gold and bonds have already sniffed this out. So over the last year, we've witnessed gold reach all-time highs, and the bond yields continue to climb because, once again, if nations that take on government liabilities want a greater return on their investment for the risk that they're exposed to. And then he says here, Bitcoin is a must. But just look at this graph here is what I want to highlight. So here we got the going back to 66 all the way up to 83. And so what he's comparing is, if you use a yellow area as 2014-ish to where we got into the whole I think that was about QE2 or that time, or was that QE2-ish? About QE2-ish. After the GFC situation, that's when things really began to trend upward as far as our inflation problems. But then he goes back with the green portion, which goes back to the 70s, and it started in 1968, according to here. And as we can see here, dealing with similar situations once we went off of the gold standard and the federal government began to expand the debt supply and money became fiat based, basically by decree, where governments began to print nilly-willy with no restrictions. This is what occurs. So the green chart here shows the early 70s, which we all know about, talked about that before. And then he comparing the 2014 CPI time frame from the GFC onward. And we saw this wave of inflation here. And then now, back in the day when the Fed thought they won, when they thought they won that first wave in the 70s, looks like here he's pointing to about 1975, 76, when the Fed thought that everything was contained. That's when everything broke out. And as you can see here, the second wave came. And so I've done videos before talking about the second wave, but his whole point is whenever the Fed says that they got something to control, that's when we know stuff is about to hit the fan. And so we have with the Federal Reserve coming out now talking about their concerns over Trump's tariffs talk and all that other stuff. To me, that just lets me know that they always needed a cover up. They always need an excuse for what they know is inevitable because there's no way around it. So just something worthwhile. But it doesn't stop there, because here we have in the next article I want to touch on. Let me get it on the screen here. Let me see here. Let me get it on the screen. Give me 1 second here. We have what we got. Where'd it go? Janet Yellen. I don't have this here. Oh, I came across is a tweet. I came across a tweet from Janet Yellen. Let me get it on the screen here. And it was a tweet with her expressing her concerns over inflation, or I'm sorry, the deficit. And so as she's on her way out the door, and and Bassett is about to be Trump's guy. And so this is the actual quote that I grabbed. It says, U.S. Treasury Secretary Yellen, I hope the new administration will take the deficit seriously. That's her quote. And so to give some context to it, is just some things that were extrapolated from her article, and I'll get into the article in a minute. But it says Treasury Secretary Yellen expressed hope that the incoming administration will prioritize addressing the deficit. Says this statement comes as Yellen prepares to leave her position with Biden administration concluding and a new administration taking over. It says Yellen's remarks reflect ongoing concerns about the U.S. fiscal situation. So not only that, I start out talking about the idea that the Federal Reserve has already lost control. There's no way of bringing, reeling this back in. The cat's out the bag. CPI is going to go up regardless because we're experiencing emergency style responses, monetarily speaking, on top of the fact that according to them, everything is hunky dory. So that right there contradicts itself. We're in a crisis situation now, but then again, majority of people outside of the people who watch this don't know the true ramifications of what's at stake here. And now you factor in the government situation when it comes to debt and the shutdown, the debt ceiling, and everything's compounded on top of each other, leading to this grand finale of the unknown. And so as a result of all this, the orchestrators of all this that we're experiencing will need more distractions. So the fire situation is going to be used as a government emergency situation to then spend more money to help with relief and stuff like that. But the relief is already built into the cake because I could just go on and on. But let me get back on track. Okay, so just real quick. So I'm pointing to a story here that I want to show. It says she defended Biden administration's focus on the deficit reduction to Inflation Reduction Act, where they created $4 trillion and allocated it to certain things to supposedly fight inflation. So they brought currency into existence to reduce inflation. Okay. She acknowledged that increases in interest rates have resulted in higher costs for servicing existing debt. So she admits that higher bond yields are problematic for the government. She highlighted that discretionary spending remains at historically low levels. Tax revenue. Okay, and so last thing here, which is what the Biden administration and the Democrats has planned perfectly. It says Yellen's statement also comes amid discussions about the approaching debt ceiling. She has warned the Treasury Department expects to reach the new debt limit between January 14th and January 23rd. So think about this. Within that 1 week time period, what else is supposed to be happening that's monumental? We're supposed to have the inauguration of Donald Trump for a second term in the same week that all this debt situation comes to the forefront. And so as a result of that, there will be extraordinary measures that will be needed to be implemented to prevent the United States from defaulting on its obligations. So literally, like, if all this doesn't look like it's been strategically coordinated for some type of chaotic monetary fiscal collision, I don't know what is. The fact that to the very week we're going to have a potential of emergency measures, and I already know Donald Trump going to come in with executive orders up the wazoo, Bitcoin reserves. Oh man, it's about to get crazy, but it's going to be entertaining because once again, as I mentioned, this is all noise that must unfold, and none of this is accidental. Okay, but it doesn't stop there. Let me keep it going, man. I got more good news for you. More good news for you. And so, to the whole point of the deficit, let me show you some interesting stuff here. So here is the actual Federal Reserve surplus or deficit. And as you can see behind me, as I move myself, we have been in a deficit, relatively speaking, or our government spends more than it produces, going back to, what's this, 70, 74, 73-ish. And then they want to say that in 2000, before Bush got in, under Clinton, we were in a surplus. But once again, I did some research. They fumbled the books a little bit there. But as you can see, once we came off the gold standard, it was all downhill. So this literally is a reflection of the United States government using a global credit card to swipe without being concerned on paying it back. They've never paid the principal. They only touch the interest on these credit cards. And this is what we're looking at now. So when Jenny Yellen says that she's concerned that this current administration won't take the deficit serious, it's like, well, hell, what is to take serious? Like, that is a part of the operations. That's how our government operates. So, yeah, once again, I know she's just talking, but she has to do her job. So, these people are all acting on behalf of the globalist, public elitist, and they're just doing what they have to do. But let's not forget, I always remind you of what really occurred over the last 4+ years. The most currency ever created came under the person that's about to become president again. He is the debt king. His empire has been created off debt. So mind you, he don't mind using debt when he sees it in a way that can benefit his establishments or himself, or as he say, America. And so it's just, this Doge program won't cut 1-2 trillion. It won't cut it because think about it. Okay, it cut 1 or 2 trillion. We're still 36 government indebtedness on top of the liability. So unless you just literally and this is the part where their efforts clearly are working towards a debt jubilee, where they're going to just run this thing into the ground. They're going to run this into the ground, which will also leave people who are dependent solely upon these, which is every single person in the world, in a sense, in our monetary system. They're going to be the ones that experience the most pain. And that's why it's never been more important to really think outside the box and minimize, limit, as well as try to maneuver and utilize your creative faculties to begin trying to strategize on ways to take whatever resources you have, put it into things that will help shield and protect you on the bare minimum, because there's no escaping none of this. There's no way you can run. There's no way you can hide. Can't go to this country, that country. It's going to find you. And what I mean by it is just simply the restructuring of our entire world. Our entire way of life is being restructured right now. That is a part of the Great Reset. So we're in the Great Reset right now. Look at the chaos, man. Like, when you see all this stuff happening in the world, like, this stuff is happening too fast for it to be accidental. We have threats of all types of illnesses and monkeypox, bird flu. They got another type of COVID out now, I think I heard. And it's just, all this stuff is ramping up at an alarming pace. And I was actually speaking with someone, yesterday in reference to some of this, and the overall consensus was just like, everybody sensed that something's not right. Everybody sensed that something's off. And it's becoming more obvious of this Trump world order that is unfolding, which is nothing new. It's just him playing his part to do what he was put in position to do. I just hope more people realize that you know they're not really getting what they voted for when they voted for Trump. It was the best of the worst, but then again, both of them are still taking us in a direction that we have to go in. And what do I mean? This is off topic because I'm actually going to do a video on this one. But let me share something with you that I came across yesterday that really helps put things into perspective slightly about just thinking about things from a long term, and I prefer to think of it from a eternal standpoint, because everything we're witnessing happens to fall within the timeline of humanity in reference to the end, to that final outcome of humanity. And everything is centered around spiritual facts. Like it's spiritual. Everything is spiritual in nature, and we're just living out this encounter in real time rather. But just real quick here, I'm ranting, but let me just bring this to a halt. Here is an article that just highlights how nothing is new, everything is old. It says a 1942 map of the New World Order. So once again, this is just stuff that's already pre-planned, and in order to execute this stuff, you need people in place to do it. And so the question we should really be asking ourselves is, how will Donald Trump actions help take the world or lead us to the New World Order? And this is where I say everything is spiritual. If you know how humanity comes to a halt in reference to there being a single government and a single currency and all the thing that takes place during the tribulation time frame, whether it's coming up or whether it's in the future, every single president plays a part in it. Every person in power is being utilized for this outcome. Now, if it's slow or fast, that's what people are most probably concerned about, like wanting to live in a time where they can have hope. But then again, if you know the final outcome, you should have hope as long as your faith is in the source that is the savior of from all of this craziness. But I can go on and on, but I'm not. But my point is this. So look at this map here and tell me, is Canada becoming the 51st state and Trump being obsessed with Greenland a coincidence? I doubt it. So I'm gonna just real quick. I didn't plan on doing this, but bear with me. Here is a map that came out in 1942. The outline of the post-war New World map created by Maurice Goldberg shows a proposal to rearrange the world after Allied victory against the Axis forces. It says its title refers to a New World Order, a vague concept, and this was back in the 40s. It's many definitions, often contradicting each other. At the core of the NWO, however, is always the notion that a small group of powerful individuals, institutions, industries, or nations must lead the world in the right direction. Okay, but here is the map. This says this may be against the world-known will, but ultimately it is for its own good. So this is the map that was circulating in public back then. That's on the screen here. And as you can see over there in the blue, look at all that territory. And it even includes Canada. I'm sorry, Mexico. So as of this map here, the plan going back centuries, decades, probably centuries, or actually millennial, because if we're going to a one world government where there will be a single government and an entity that will be the head of that, which is the Antichrist figure, then it's good to say everything we've encountered as a human species under the influence of the king of this world, which happens to be Satan himself, was a part of all the events taking place to get us to this point where, clearly having Canada and Greenland as a part of the U.S., and it's not a matter of when or if, it's when, because this is the outcome that we should expect if everything is true biblically speaking. But anyway, so look, just this map here shows you. So as of right now, Canada is putting up some resistance, but it's good to say that at some point in the future, if not this president, the next, somehow, some way, they'll make a way to make sure Canada joins the fold. But even if they don't join the fold, the president of Canada now is a individual that supports the global order as well. So anyway, so as you can see here, there's 10 regions, 10 different units the dark blue, the light orange, the dark orange. We got the red and the red, the blue. So all these make up here a 10 unit block, which they're working towards. They meaning the powers at play here, that they're working to accomplish. And this is just one article. So we got, this is called the Union of Africa Republic, this big block. And then we have the Federated Republics of Arabian Federated Republics. It's the Federated Republics of India. So this map here, or these maps, United Republics of China. So the idea or the fact that an individual received instructions or had the idea to concoct a map that depicted this under this concept of having unified borders, unified nations, whether this is like just a gimmick or somebody's fantasy or play, it's just no coincidence. And it doesn't stop there. I got more articles, but I'm gonna give you this last one, and then we'll move from there. But it's like everything is on schedule. Nothing is what it seems. And the good part about this, for people who stay plugged in, awake and aware, you know what's up. So this is something that highlights more of this. This is a different version of the New World Order map. And so here you can see Canada and Greenland. And this came out, according to this publication here, in 1976. And so that's when the United States Association of the Club of Rome was formed. And so I'm like, okay, like I've never heard about that. Or, so I've mentioned all this before. I got a visual aid about it. But the Club of Rome, which is comprised of a committee of 300 of the wealthiest royal families and individuals that have a say-so in how this plays out. And so I'm like, okay, let me find out if this, Club of Rome is real. So I just typed in United States, U.S. Association Club of Rome. I'm like, oh, okay, let me see. I never really looked deep into this. But then if you go even further, let me just try to find here. There is actually a Club of Rome which exists, and this Club of Rome was created in 1968, and it is a nonprofit information organization of intellectuals and business leaders whose goal is a critical discussion of pressing global issues. The Club of Rome was founded in 1968 at the Academy of Lycia in Rome, Italy. It consists of 100 full members selected from current and former heads of state and government, UN administrator, high-level politicians and government officials, diplomats, scientists, economists, business leaders from around the globe. And so the Club of Rome is real as far as a body of individuals that I'm sure they're coming together discussing pressing global issues. What global issues could we be facing other than a one world government global issue? So once again, these are people that are not elected, but they come together and they have influence to pull off things of this nature. So, it's okay. I'm going kind of long with this, but once again, these are all things that I don't get a chance to touch on. But let me just give you something else that really should make you question everything and believe nothing. I didn't even get to none of that. Okay, all right, this is the last thing I want to do. But let me share something with you that should make you really question. Let me find it. Okay. It was a comment that Donald Trump made that should have you very spooked, or not spooked, but just alarmed. I'm going to play this and we'll just listen to it. But this was a comment from his Mar-a-Lago speech that when I heard it, it had me like, whoa, what's going on here? What's this about? So listen to this one. Let me bring it on the screen here. Let me see. Give me 1 second here. Bring it on the screen here so you can see what I see. And then, all right, so let's just listen to this and you'll understand what I mean.
Well, we need Greenland for
all right.
National security. Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time.
Okay, so stop right there. He asked a question about Greenland. He said, we need Greenland as a part of our national security. I've been told that well before now, and even before I was president, there were people talking about Greenland being a extremely important territory for national security. And so I'm thinking like, okay, so these influential people who tell him, and so once again, everything coming out of his mouth is not his idea. It's from his advisors and people who are a part of those governing bodies. So mind you, I just showed you the Club of Rome that's based in Switzerland, might I add, which is key, biblically speaking, as well. And if you got all these people who are being told what they want to accomplish, they are passing information down through their NGOs, to their groups and stuff like that, through their friends of friends and these meetings that they have. And then they get to the president's ear and say, yeah, Greenland is important, President. It's a part of national security. And national security is always a code word for, we're going to conquer, take over. We want this. We have interests in that area. So we need to put people there so we can get our goals accomplished. But just that statement there of like, I've heard that, and before me, that Greenland was always important. And so I just showed you a map that's showing that Greenland was important back in the 40s and the 30s. And so it's like, once again, like, so this is just to me more proof, more evidence that nothing is accidental. Everything is intentional. And Donald Trump is playing his part. And he appears to be doing a good job, because I question, like, how exactly does adding Greenland and Canada make America great? I don't know. It doesn't. But it makes the world order great. So he's doing his job. Best thing we can do is pray for him and ask that God will continue to allow everything to unfold according to his will. Because mind you, what we're instructed to pray is that his kingdom come, his will be done on this stratosphere as it is in heaven. And eventually he will get what he wanted. He will get what he wants. Amen to that. All right, people, I got more articles, but I'm not going to bore you with it. As always, for those who might want more, I encourage you, go over to the RTD news page. There's a lot more stories there. And if I could do like a 3-hour, 4-hour, I'm saying, there's enough juicy stuff here noise wise to keep you informed and in tune. So remind you, rtd.news, check it out, and we'll go from there. But be blessed, be safe. Shalom.